Это обычное кафе, в котором люди...
This was a regular cafe where people gathered for the New Year's celebration. There were more than 100 people there. If we take the people who survived, they naturally have documents. These were middle-aged people. There were many young people around 20 to 25 years old. They were also injured. Many of those who had such injuries did not even go to the hospital. They removed the shrapnel from their bodies themselves. There were people on the scene who immediately rushed to help, but the enemy continued to threaten them and did not allow them to do so. Reconnaissance drones were hovering overhead, preventing people from approaching to help those who were still there, even though the fire was so intense that it was already impossible to enter. These were different people. They were probably visiting someone. This is southern Russia, a warm region, so they came to visit their relatives, and brought their children to have fun near the festive tree. Everyone who was there had nothing to do with military professions. By the way, the cafe's owner also suffered serious shrapnel wounds that penetrated her chest cavity. Fortunately, she survived. There were burnt people. It's clear that this impact was not only from the fire of building constructions, but also from the incendiary ammunition that followed the shrapnel, hitting those who were there. This was a regular cafe, essentially in a small resort village near a hotel. All the people who were there gathered shortly before midnight. Apparently, during our president's Vladimir Putin's speech, such a terrorist act was committed. It was precisely the time chosen when the whole world, those who celebrate New Year at midnight our time, congratulate each other and listen to the greetings. It was at this time that the attack was made to relax vigilance and somehow bypass observational posts. From the Black Sea side, these drones evidently approached and inflicted the strike in this way. They were probably hovering in the air for a long time, and struck exactly about 5 minutes before the New Year. The biggest problem that arose there was that people who were nearby and standing outside, fortunately, were not inside at the time but were heading into the cafe. They immediately rushed to help, but following the first and second, a third drone arrived. In the first minutes, those who were nearby were providing assistance. The Emergency Situations Ministry arrived at the scene immediately, within 20 to 30 minutes, but the fire was so intense that it was extinguished nearly until dawn. It was poorly visible at night, and only in the morning could one enter the territory. What we see now in the footage. This work is no longer for rescuers, but for investigators and identifiers of what happened there. But overall, the Emergency Situations Ministry and Special Forces that arrived there acted quite promptly. For this, they deserve great thanks because if they hadn't started extinguishing the fire and evacuating those inside in time, it might have been much more complicated. After the fire, which lasted more than 6 hours, was put out and it became possible to enter the ruins of the cafe and partially the hotel, the investigative committee began working on identifying the remaining charred bodies and examining the situation regarding how and with what kind of ammunition a civilian facility was attacked, which has absolutely no connection to military or any related spheres. There is now talk that apparently there were military people there, but if children and those children who are now among the victims are considered military. Now Crimea has begun to help us because severely injured people are being transported to the Crimean Clinical Hospital. Among them are children and teenagers born in 2008 to 2007. It was an ordinary festive evening. The adversary is simply trying to disrupt the peaceful life of civilians and show that peace is still a long way off. They are clearly acting against the efforts of our president and U.S. President, Donald Trump, who say and do everything to bring about a peace agreement. But it seems the Kiev regime doesn't want this, thus showing its beastly face. No matter what they do, the Russian soldier and the Russian engineer, who is now countering such attacks, cannot be defeated. Therefore, no matter how much they, the Ukrainian forces, are helped, the goals of the special military operation will be achieved. Such strikes against civilians, cruel, brutal and bloody, further fuel the resolve of our warriors in their actions, which will stop such state-level terrorism. It is unclear why Western leaders are silent about this or refuse to see it. They are probably looking at something else. That which can gouge the eye, they are perhaps afraid to look at.